Howdy there, y'all. I said, howdy there, y'all. Howdy, 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 all that good stuff. Good to see you. Welcome to another edition of the Help Review, wherein I rate and review the help, i.e., our nation's politicians who ostensibly work for us. I might have to change that intro soon, given that this is going to be the third consecutive special edition, a little bit different. Been doing those lately. I don't know, just been on one. It's just seemed appropriate for the past few weeks. Valentine's Day, we covered American sex scandals, President's Day, American presidential scandals, and now today, February 28th, 2022, with everything that's going on in the world, it seemed appropriate to cover Trump and Putin's bromance, Trump and Putin and or Russia and their bromance with one another. It just seems like good time to sort of highlight all this stuff. Now, okay, a couple of disclaimers about this. First of all, this is all going to be stuff that you heard along the way, but I bet a lot of it you've forgotten because, as always with Trump, the utter deluge of horrifying bullshit is impossible for any one normal person to keep up with in their memory. We've only got so much room in our brains for, Trump horse shit at any given time. And that's been his strategy from the beginning. Just keep piling on horse shit. You can't keep up. You forget so much of the dumb, terrible stuff that he has gotten up to just by virtue of the avalanche that he continuously pours down upon us, or at least did when he was president. And let's be honest, he's keeping up with it now because just this morning he put out in his little monthly memo, his little newsletter he's got, taking credit for NATO's existence, and talking about how none of this would have happened if he was in office and all that. That's been a narrative recently. Trump, the maggots out there rolling with it. It's Biden's fault. Trump never would have allowed this, and this has been done elsewhere on the internet. But I thought, why not just sort of go through a little Cliff Notes version outlining many of the reasons that is clearly not true because of Trump's long-standing, very lovey-dovey relationship with Vladimir Putin and Russia. Now, a couple of disclaimers. There's just so much. There could be and maybe are already multiple full documentary series on this subject. I'm doing we'll see how long it goes, but typically 15, 20 minutes or so Patreon video on it. So you're definitely getting the Cliff Notes. I just want to kind of hit the low lights, as it were, remind y'all of some of these things and just hopefully paint a bit of a broader picture there. So yeah, let's get into it. Starting with just kind of the overview of the various sort of connection, the web. That's the other thing about all this stuff. You need one of those conspiracy theory red string thumbtack court boards situation in a basement, chain smoking cigarettes, and tying strings around thumbtacks all day to really make sense of all this shit. And that's how they get you. But we'll just sort of go through them. So, first of all, there's all kinds of like shady financial connections between Trump and his business interest and banks and Russian banks and real estate purchases. And there's been, whisperings of money laundering and whatnot. Trump hosted the Miss Universe pageant in Russia in 2013, been buddied up with Putin for a while. A lot of the people that Trump had working for him at the outset, multiple connections to Russia. Of course, we all know about Michael Flynn, the former head of the DIA and the Trump National Security Advisor, who was heavily connected over there. He spoke at a Russia Today. It's the state-sponsored news outlet over there, a gala they had in Moscow in 2015 where he sat next to Putin. He had multiple conversations with Russian Ambassador Sergei Kislyak. God damn it, there's going to be some tough names in here probably. And I can be word dumb sometimes. Sergei Kislyak about loosening the sanctions on Russia and all the other shit that Michael Flynn got up to. Now, noted QAnon lunatic Michael Flynn. There was also Carter Page, Trump advisor and intermediary for Paul Manafort and Russia. He had multiple business ties to state-owned Russian energy corps who offered him massive stakes if he could get the sanctions lifted. A lot of these business relationships had to do with promises of getting sanctions loosened or lifted in exchange for, financial interest in Russian state-owned companies, just your average garden variety wheeling and dealing, right? When you're working in the Illuminati levels of world government, just all another day in the life of a lizard person. I always forget, I don't know if y'all know this, but you're not supposed to say lizard people because the origin of it is pretty unsavory, which I never knew. I just always used it to describe rich and powerful people. So my bad on that. The fucking eyes wide shut, mask wearing assholes. That's what I'm talking about. Trump had a very a very tight business associate named Felix Sater, who ultimately pled guilty in a stock fraud scheme involving the Russian mafia, which has known ties to Vladimir Putin. Jeff Sessions, the attorney general at the time, he met with Kislyak, the Russian ambassador, multiple times. Rex Tillerson, Trump's first secretary of state, did business with the state-owned Russian energy companies on multiple occasions. And as I briefly mentioned earlier, Trump Organization itself maintains a private server connection with a massive Russian bank. There was also, of course, the big Trump Tower meeting between Trump Jr., Jared Kushner, and Paul Manafort, and Russian officials reportedly aimed at getting dirt on Hillary Clinton in the run-up to the 2016 election. A lot of times here we sort of know what our side was looking for, but what was Russia looking for in all of these meetings, right? Well, we'll get to that in a little bit. First, let's just go over some times over the years that Trump has jerked Vlad off, giving him a nice reach around, because that's been one of his favorite activities over the past few years while he was in office. He has on multiple occasions referred to Putin as a strong leader, saying things like he's done a really great job outsmarting our country. That's what Trump, he's got a thing for despots. You ever notice that? He's got a real hard on for authoritarian tyrants. I don't know what that's about. That's weird. I don't know why he would have a fascination with that particular type of leader, but seems to be the case. And he holds Putin in the highest regard. Trump dismissed and cast doubt about Russian hacking in the election, which is ironic considering at the time he openly encouraged Russia to meddle in the election on national television, saying, "Russia, if you're listening, I hope you're able to find those 30,000 emails that are missing." Everybody remember that? That's pretty wild, right? Not for Donald Trump. Barely breaks the surface of his insanity. When addressing Russian election interference and cyber attacks, Trump proclaimed, "I don't see any reason why it would be Russia." Then later he said, "Well, I meant to say I don't see any reason why it wouldn't be Russia." But he repeatedly downplayed the notion that they had interfered, which we know they did. He also tried to set up a system where the U.S. would work directly with Russia on cybersecurity, hand in hand. Seems like a bad idea. It's like working hand in hand with O.J. Simpson on marriage counseling. You know what I mean? I don't know why it seems counterintuitive to want to partner with Russia in matters of cybersecurity, but hey, Donald Trump always thinking outside the box, way outside the box, over in the vicinity of where the mental asylum is in relation to the box. That's where he's generally thinking. Padded room, eating crayons, coming up with ideas. That's his general process. After almost directly after the 2016 election, Trump sought to weaken U.S. sanctions on Russia, stating that he was open to lifting sanctions entirely. He whenever anybody would talk about the ruthlessness of Vladimir Putin, he would consistently downplay it, saying, "You think we're so innocent?" It's basically just like, "Listen, we kill people too. You think we ain't never had somebody thrown out of a window? Of course we have. It's just what you do." Okay. He's really good at it. That's all it is. You're just jealous. That's the thing. He shared highly classified U.S. intelligence with Russian officials in the Oval Office in 2017. I don't know if that was him not knowing what he was looking at or just being like, "Look, you guys see this? Look how cool this is. Look, I just tell them to spy on Syria or whatever, and they do it. You want to look at it? You can look at it. I can get you into that. You want to." Kind of a big deal over here. He repeatedly defended Russia in the Crimea, the whole Crimea thing, saying that he said the people of Crimea, from what I've heard, would rather be with Russia than where they were. So he defended Russia's first incursion into Ukrainian space. He constantly attacked NATO, tried to get it disbanded. Basically, I mentioned earlier today, he's now claiming somehow that his assault upon NATO, I guess, is the reason that they're still together. He didn't explain it, as he never does, but basically he took credit for NATO's existence despite repeatedly calling for their disbandment, or repeatedly trying to sabotage NATO in their efforts. Putin expelled hundreds of U.S. diplomats because of sanctions, and Trump thanked him for that. So seems like not what you would want out of the sitting president, but he's like, "Yeah, really sent us a strong message there, sir. I really admire that. Good job." Trump refused to publicly condemn Russian attacks against Ukrainian military vessels back in 2018. Um, he congratulated and praised Putin upon his reelection, which, you know, I don't know if reelection is kind of a strong word. It's more just like, you know, his reinstallment of himself into the role of de facto dictator. I don't know how much of an election victory it really was, but either way, Trump was into it. Um, any More sanctions were suggested for Russia after a Russian spy had been poisoned in the UK, and Trump attempted to rescind them, saying we were being a little too tough on Vlad. He's like, listen, he's got a lot going on over there. Okay, it's cold all the time. There's bears. We need to just try to be sympathetic. All right, he's my friend. He was very reluctant to sign a bill including new sanctions in 2017. He was considering returning some of our spy bases to Russia. He praised and highlighted pro-Russian leaders in Europe, far-right European leaders with close ties to Putin. And when he withdrew troops from Syria, it gave Russia and Putin an opportunity to control abandoned U.S. outposts and checkpoints. Also, we will all remember when Putin was, when it was revealed that the Russian military had bounties for killing American soldiers, Trump said, that's pretty cool. Yeah, that's neat. Isn't that neat? These guys, they're ambitious. I tell you, they go for it. Listen, that is innovative leadership right there, finding ways to incentivize your ground level employees. That's just good. That's just good business operations right there. Sure, it involves killing our troops who we're supposed to support. It's always weird to me how the support the troops crowd just glossed over all of Donald Trump's overt non-support of the troops. Proved it time and time again, called them fucking losers and shit, talked shit about them to no end, was totally fine with bounties being put out on their heads, and then the flag wavers and the fucking, you know, the saber rattlers among us are just kept, you know, he's a strong military leader. That's what our country needs, you know, because you know why? Because he would never kneel for the national anthem, and that's what really matters. It's fucking outrageous. Simone Biles level mental gymnastics you got to have over on that side of the fence. I tell you what. But so anyway, long history of Trump and being cool with Russia, but it's much of it is directly related to Ukraine. It seems like looking back over it, you know, said it's obviously there's give and take in these relationships. Trump was looking for dirt on Hillary Clinton or, you know, election interference, whatever he could get out of Russia. What was Russia looking for? Trump's people were they were lining their pockets over in Russia. Well, what was Russia getting out of the arrangement? Well, a lot of it seems like, was explicitly about Ukraine the whole time. They've had their eye on Ukraine for a minute now, you know, and a lot of this sort of backs that up. So remember the Steele dossier? Well, part of that was it alleged that the Trump campaign made a secret deal with Russia in which Trump agreed to sideline the issue of Russian interference in Ukraine. And in return, Russia promised to feed the emails it stole from prominent Democrats' inboxes to WikiLeaks to damage Hillary Clinton's candidacy. Okay. I mentioned Paul Manafort earlier. That dude was all over the place in Russia and Ukraine for a long time and was Trump's straight up campaign manager, as we know. So before Zelensky, who, you know, everybody's favorite president right now, they had a pro-Russian puppet who'd been installed in the presidency named Viktor Yanukovych. And guess who helped Viktor Yanukovych win the Ukrainian presidency in 2010? That's right. You guessed it. Paul Manafort. It was suggested and alleged multiple times that Manafort was receiving a lot of money in kickback payments in exchange for getting the Russian puppet installed in office back in 2010. The New York Times reported that Yanukovych's pro-Russian political party earmarked $12.7 million for Paul Manafort for his work between 2007 and 2012, although Manafort maintains he never collected the payment. So Manafort was working directly on behalf of Russia's interest in Ukraine before joining Trump's campaign. In July 2016, while Manafort was still Donald Trump's campaign manager, a change was made to the Republican Party's policy regarding Ukraine. The change fits with the Steele dossier's assertion that the Trump campaign agreed to soften U.S. support for Ukraine in exchange for the Kremlin releasing damaging information about Hillary Clinton. The original draft language of the RNC regarding Ukraine proposed sending lethal weapons, quote, lethal weapons to the Ukrainian army to fend off Russian aggression. But after a subcommittee meeting at the convention, lethal weapons was softened significantly and changed to, quote, provide appropriate resistance. A member of the Republican National Committee present at that meeting confirmed to Business Insider that that change 100% came from Trump staffers. So the whole time, back years ago, before Trump got in office, and all these, shady backdoor dealings, many of them were aimed specifically by Russia at getting the U.S. off its back in regards to Ukraine so they could go in there and take it. So they've been moving after this for a long time, and Trump has been complicit in that effort the entire time. And then the last major thing to remember that has been pointed out multiple times already this weekend, but deserves to be pointed out again, is that we all remember what Trump got impeached for the second time. We had first impeachment. What about second impeachment? Yeah, we had that too. And the second time it was for, inciting an insurrection and whatnot. You'll have that where Donald Trump is concerned. But the first time Trump got impeached, it was for illegally withholding military aid to Ukraine, which had already been appropriated to them by Congress, unless they agreed to make up political dirt on Hunter Biden. So, pretty explicit with helping out Russia in regards to Ukraine. The point of all this being, of course, that when Trump says that this never would have happened on his watch, he's probably right about that. It would, because what would be different about it is we would probably be aiding Russia in their invasion of Ukraine right now. So thank God that is not the case. Feels like also that Trump, he gets to say like, yeah, Russia wasn't doing all the shit was I was in there, because like Russia knew that they had anything they wanted. There was no resistance from the White House when Trump was in office. So they didn't have to, act out, as it were. So everything that he's saying is, disingenuous and complete bullshit. I know, shocking as that may be, but I just think that it's rich hearing all this narrative emerging on the right in this country right now about how, if it was still Trump in there, we would have this all taken care of. This wouldn't be happening. He never would have allowed it, when it's pretty clear that Trump has been Russia's financial and political and just every type of bitch the entire time that he has been in power. So next time you hear somebody say that, tell them, no, that ain't it. You're full of shit. And point them to any one of these numerous, voluminous sources that are available on the subject out there on the interwebs. So, fuck Trump, fuck Putin, glory to Ukraine. And thank y'all for being here. We'll have some more stuff coming soon. So love you. Bye.